Hello, today we're going to start section 5.2, linear equations in two variables. The objectives of this section are identify linear equations in two variables algebraically and graphically, find the intercepts of a linear equation in 2D, graph a linear equation, write the equation of a line given 2 points, point in a slope, or a graph. Part 1, linear equations in 2D. So what is a linear equation? Well, you can think about them graphically, in which case they are just lines. So something that might look like this, or something that might look like this, or you can even have horizontal lines, or vertical lines. So that's what graphically it means to be a line. Algebraically, in general, a linear equation is an equation in which each term is either a constant or has one variable without any exponent. For example, a linear equation in x and y can have terms like -1/2, 4x, -2y. But it cannot have terms like x squared, -3 square root of y, or z cubed. Can't have square roots, can't have exponents, can just have constants and variables to the first power. Components of a line. To find the equation of a line, we need a point and the slope. To plot the graph of a linear equation, we need 2 points. Part 2, slope. The slope of a line is the rate of change in the y variable to the change in the x variable as we move along the line. In real applications, the slope always measures a rate of change such as miles per hour, dollars per candy bar, or miles per gallon, given any 2 points x1, y1 and x2, y2 on a line. The slope of that line can be found by m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You will also see that this is the same thing as y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. The reason why I write it both ways is just to indicate it doesn't matter which point you use first, it's just whichever point comes first on top comes first on the bottom as well. Example 1. Find the slope between the following pairs of points. A, 2, 3, and -2, 7. So M is 7 minus 3 over -2 minus 2. So 7 minus 3 is 4. -2 minus 2 is -4. 4 over -4 is -1. So the slope for A is -1. B. Slope M will equal -2 minus 0 over -2 minus 1/2. -2 minus 0 is -2. -2 minus 1/2 is -5/2. Now I want a single fraction though, so this would be -2 times -2/5. Put that over 1, and we get -2 times -2 is +4, and 1 times 5 is 5. So the slope for B is 4/5. Example 2. How do we find the slope when we're given the graph, though? Well, one way you can do it is you can just find 2 points on the line. So, for example, 0, -4, and 4, 1. And you can use the slope equation. But when you're given the graph, it's easier to think of the slope as the change in y over the change in x. So you start at one of the points and you go to the other point. So first you go up or down. In other words, you go vertical. So I went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, and I went over 4 units. So then our slope here is 5 over 4. Just keep in mind, if you go down or left, the numbers would have to be negative. Part 3. An x-intercept is an ordered pair of the form x, 0. It is called an intercept because it intersects or lies on the x-axis. A y-intercept is an ordered pair of the form 0, y. It is called an intercept as well because it intersects or lies on the y-axis. Graphically, one can find the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts by identifying the points that lie on the x or y-axis respectively. Algebraically, one can find x-intercepts or y-intercepts of an equation by substituting the non-specified variable with 0 and then solving for the specified variable. So in other words, if you're looking for the x-intercept, plug y equals 0 and solve for x. And if you're solving for the y-intercept, you plug x equals 0 and solve for y. For example, to find the x-intercept of the equation 6 equals 3y plus 2x, first set y equal to 0 and solve for x. To instead find its y-intercept, set x equal to 0 and solve for y. Example 3. Find the x and y-intercepts of the following. So part 1, we're given an equation. So let's start off by finding the x-intercept. So you do this by plugging 0 in for y. So we get 8 equals 4x plus 2 times 0. So 8 equals 4x, divide by 4, divide by 4, 2 equals x. But since I asked for the x-intercept, you can't just say 2. The intercept is a point, so the answer is 2, 0. Then similarly for the y-intercept, you plug 0 in for x. And then solve for y. So we get 4 equals y. Again, that's not our answer. We need to put it in an intercept form. So that would be 0, 4. So that's how you do it when you're given the equation. If you're given the graph, though, you just physically look for it. So here, the y-intercept is relatively easy. So that's why I'm going to start with that one, the y-intercept. Well, that's 0, 1. And then the x-intercept, well, if I look at it, it looks like it goes through negative 1/2. So that would be negative 1/2, 0. And that is how you find x and y intercepts. And that is it for part 1 of this section.